The bride stood at the altar, her wedding dress stained with blood, holding a phone that would destroy everyone in that church. What she'd discovered 3 hours before saying ID was so twisted, so unthinkable, that she decided to turn her fairy tale wedding into the most savage revenge plot ever caught on camera. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 12 people needed medical attention, why the groom is now serving 15 years, and why this bride's revenge became the most viral wedding disaster in criminal history. If you renew here and love true crime stories that lines keep you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button. Beautiful, intelligent, completely devoted to the man she was about to marry. She had everything planned perfectly. Tall, charming, the kind of man who looked perfect in a suit and knew exactly what to say at dinner parties. Their Instagram looked like a fairy tale. Romantic vacations to Italy, cozy Sunday mornings with coffee and newspapers, charity galas, where they looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. The most exclusive venue in the city, a historic cathedral that required a 2-year waiting list. Sarah had dreamed of this day since she was 7 years old, and every single detail was exactly as she'd imagined. A beautiful, successful woman who could advance his career and provide him with the lifestyle he wanted without having to work for it. And for 8 months, he'd been planning to destroy her in the most humiliating way possible. It was against tradition, but Michael insisted he needed to give her something special. A family heirloom bracelet that belonged to his grandmother. The flowers, the dress, the menu, the photographer who'd won awards for capturing love stories. Michael looked nervous, which Sarah found endearing. He was sweating slightly, which she attributed to wedding day jitters. Sarah glanced at it instinctively, the way you might glance at a car accident as you drive past. She was just going to see who was texting, so she could let them know Michael had left his phone behind. She wasn't trying to invade his privacy. He gave her the bracelet, kissed her forehead, and told her he'd see her at the altar. Then he walked away, leaving his phone on the small table beside the door. The room was filled with laughter, champagne, and the nervous excitement that comes before the biggest day of your life. Never. He slept with it charging beside his pillow. He took it to the bathroom. He checked it obsessively during movies, during dinner, during conversations. For Michael to forget his phone was like a surgeon forgetting their hands. Sarah looked absolutely radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown, a dress that had taken 6 months to create and cost more than most people's cars. Everyone who knew them said they were perfect together. Sarah's friends were jealous. Michael's colleagues respected him more for landing such an incredible woman. He drove a BMW, lived in a penthouse, and proposed to Sarah with a 4-carat diamond ring on the beach in Malibu. The career, the apartment, the wedding, the future. Sarah was the type of woman who color-coded her calendar and had backup plans for her backup plans. We're building an amazing community of crime junkies, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. But first, she found what in his phone. And why did she wait until the ceremony to unleash hell? 28 years old, successful marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company in downtown Chicago. Before we dive into this absolutely insane story, I want to thank my incredible viewers who make this channel possible. Meet Sarah Chen. Now meet Michael Torres, 30 years old, respected investment banker at Goldman Sachs. For 3 years, they were Chicago's golden couple. They'd been planning their wedding for 18 months. $150,000, 300 guests. But here's what nobody knew about Michael Torres. Not Sarah, not his colleagues, not even his own mother. Sarah was in the bridal suite at the Fairmont Hotel, surrounded by her bridesmaids, getting her hair and makeup done. Michael Torres was a pathological liar who saw Sarah Chen as nothing more than a business transaction. It was 3 hours before the ceremony. A text message lit up the screen. Michael was supposed to be getting ready with his groomsmen at the hotel across town, but he'd stopped by to see Sarah one last time before the ceremony. They met in the hallway outside the bridal suite for just 5 minutes. Sarah noticed it immediately. Michael never went anywhere without his phone. She was about to run after him when the phone buzzed. The message preview made her blood turn to ice. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby." Sarah has no idea what's coming. The sender's name was Emma Chen, Sarah's younger sister. Sarah stared at the phone like it was a bomb about to explode. Her hands started shaking so violently that she almost dropped it. The sister who'd helped her choose the dress, plan the menu, address the invitations, the sister who'd held her while she cried over Michael during their one brief breakup 2 years ago, who'd convinced her that he was worth fighting for. Her vision blurred. The sounds of laughter and music from the bridal suite seemed to come from another planet. Emma, her baby sister, the maid of honor who was supposed to stand beside her in 20 minutes. 8 months of messages that made Sarah's stomach turn inside out. Sarah looked around the hallway, making sure no one could see her, and with trembling fingers, she unlocked Michael's phone. She knew his passcode because they'd shared everything. No secrets between them, complete trust and transparency. At least, that's what she'd believed. The phone opened to a text thread between Michael and Emma that went back 8 months. "Sarah's so stupid, she actually believes you love her. The look on her face when she finds out is going to be priceless. I can't believe she is paying for this whole wedding while we laugh behind her back. After the honeymoon, we'll have access to all her accounts. Then we disappear. Still in her vomit-stained wedding dress. Cancel everything. Send everyone home. Deal with the humiliation privately, the way most people do when they discover their partner's betrayal." Staring at the phone that had just destroyed her entire world. 300 people were waiting for her. The cathedral was filled with flowers. The photographer was setting up for the ceremony of a lifetime. The caterers were preparing a feast that would cost more than most people's annual salary. She'd be so humiliated, she'd never recover. Sarah scrolled through hundreds of messages, each one more devastating than the last. Photos of Michael and Emma together. Reading message after message of Michael and Emma planning to destroy her. Something cold and calculating settled into Sarah's mind. They thought she was stupid and gullible. They were planning to steal her money and disappear while she dealt with the wreckage of her life. Something cleaned the vomit off her dress as best she could, and walked back into the bridal suite like nothing had happened. Her bridesmaids immediately noticed something was wrong. Sarah looked pale, shaky, different somehow. That had nothing to do with love or heartbreak or the woman she'd been 5 minutes earlier. In Sarah's apartment, in Sarah's bed, wearing Sarah's clothes. Messages planning their future together while destroying hers. Voice messages where they laughed about Sarah's excitement over wedding planning, calling her pathetic, gullible, desperate. But the worst part, the part that made Sarah run to the bathroom and vomit all over her wedding dress, was the photo Emma had sent just 2 hours earlier. A positive pregnancy test. Our baby is going to be so much better off without Aunt Sarah in the picture. Sarah sat on the bathroom floor. She could call it off. But as she sat there, they wanted to humiliate her. Sarah Chen was about to show them exactly how intelligent she really was. She stood up. "Are you okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah smiled. And later, her bridesmaids would say that smile was the most terrifying thing they'd ever seen. I'm perfect. Actually, I just realized this is going to be the most memorable wedding anyone has ever attended. Sarah sat in the bridal suite, surrounded by her closest friends, watching them fuss over her hair and makeup while her mind worked like a computer processing the most complex equation of her life. Every detail had to be perfect. Every move had to be calculated. She needed him to create a slideshow that would display on the massive screens throughout the cathedral. She told him exactly which photos to include, exactly which messages to screenshot, exactly which audio files to embed. She sat there getting her hair curled, her makeup perfected, her dress adjusted, while secretly coordinating the complete annihilation of everyone who had betrayed her. Photos, videos, documents, bank statements, everything that proved the scope of their betrayal. Attempts that had failed because Sarah had been smart enough to require dual authorization for large transfers. Michael had been planning to clean out their accounts during their honeymoon, leaving Sarah bankrupt and humiliated. She found pictures of Michael and Emma from their first secret meeting 8 months ago. She found video recordings of them in her apartment, in her bed, laughing about how easy it was to fool her. She smiled for photos with her bridesmaids. She hugged her mother. She laughed at jokes and sipped champagne and played the role of the happiest woman alive. Michael's voice messages to Emma, where he confessed that he'd never loved Sarah, that he was only marrying her for her money and connections. Emma's recordings, where she laughed about Sarah's excitement over wedding planning, calling her sister pathetic and desperate. She walked him through every detail while maintaining the perfect facade of a blushing bride. She called Michael, pretending to be nervous about the ceremony, and got him to confess on record that their entire relationship had been a lie. Because through the messages and recordings, she discovered that this wasn't just a betrayal by two people, because she was about to orchestrate the most devastating public revenge in wedding history. Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Sarah's so trusting. She never see it coming. Her cousin Jake was the only person she trusted completely. He was a cybersecurity expert, the kind of guy who could hack into anything and leave no trace. More importantly, he'd never liked Michael. He'd told Sarah from the beginning that something felt off about her fiancé, but Sarah had been too in love to listen. She texted Jake from Michael's phone, pretending to be Michael asking for help with a surprise wedding slideshow. Jake responded immediately, excited to help create something special for Sarah's big day. He had no idea he was about to become an accomplice in the most savage takedown ever captured on camera. He had no idea he was building a weapon of mass destruction. While her bridesmaids touched up her makeup, Sarah gave Jake very specific instructions. Jake thought he was helping create a romantic tribute to Sarah and Michael's love story. The next hour was the most surreal experience of Sarah's life. But inside, she was accessing Michael's cloud storage account, downloading 2 years' worth of evidence. She found bank transfer attempts where Michael had tried to move money from their joint accounts into an account he'd opened with Emma. But the most damaging evidence was the audio recordings. The final piece of evidence came from a phone call Sarah made while her bridesmaids were busy with last-minute preparations. "I can't wait to get this over with," Michael said. Thinking he was talking to Emma, Sarah recorded every word. By the time her bridal party was ready to leave for the cathedral, Sarah had assembled an evidence portfolio that would destroy not just Michael and Emma, but everyone who had been complicit in their plan. Michael's best man knew about the affair and had been helping them plan their escape. Emma's boyfriend had been in on it, planning to disappear with them after they stole Sarah's money. Even Michael's mother had been involved, discussing how to exclude Sarah from family inheritance once they were married. Very wrong. Her hair was perfect. Her dress, despite the earlier incident, looked stunning. She looked radiant, glowing in a way that Sarah now realized had nothing to do with happiness for her sister and everything to do with the secret she was carrying. Her father had tears in his eyes, overwhelmed with emotion at seeing his daughter on her wedding day. Her mother clutched a tissue, already crying at the beauty of the ceremony. They had no idea their other daughter had been plotting to destroy their family for 8 months. Michael's baby, the ultimate betrayal. Only Sarah knew she was thinking about how this would be the last time the Chen family was together before Emma disappeared with Michael and their unborn child. Like what? Only Sarah knew he was calculating how much longer he'd have to pretend before he could access her bank accounts. The priest, began the ceremony with a blessing that echoed through the beautiful space. Every person in that cathedral turned to watch her, and the collective gasp of appreciation was audible. She looked like a princess, like a movie star, like everything a bride should be on her wedding day. Her smile was radiant, her step was confident, and she looked deeply, genuinely happy. Was supposed to be the most beautiful bride in the world on the happiest day of her life. 6 people had conspired to destroy Sarah Chen's life. 6 people who thought she was too stupid and trusting to ever figure out what they were doing. Sarah, her maid of honor, asked. Not Emma, who had gone ahead to the cathedral with the other bridesmaids, but Sarah's college roommate, who had no idea what was about to happen. Both of them sharing secret smiles about what they thought was their brilliant plan. Michael kept checking his watch, eager to get through the ceremony so he could begin the process of destroying Sarah's life. Sarah was about to prove them very. As the bridal party's limousine pulled up to the cathedral, Sarah looked at herself in the compact mirror. Her makeup was flawless, but her eyes held something that none of her friends recognized. Something cold and calculating and absolutely merciless. Are you ready? Sarah smiled that same terrifying smile she'd shown in the bridal suite. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. 300 guests filled the pews, all dressed in their finest clothes, all excited to witness what everyone believed would be the wedding of the century. The flowers alone had cost $15,000. White roses, peonies, and baby's breath created a romantic atmosphere that looked like something out of a fairy tale. The Cathedral of St. Matthew was absolutely breathtaking. Michael stood at the altar looking confident and handsome in his custom tuxedo. His best man stood beside him. Emma stood at the front of the church as the maid of honor, wearing a beautiful lavender dress and holding a bouquet of white roses. Sarah's parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. The wedding coordinator gave Sarah the signal. It was time. Sarah walked down the aisle to Pachelbel's cannon, looking absolutely stunning. Michael watched her approach with what everyone assumed was love and admiration. Emma watched her sister walk down the aisle with what looked like joy and excitement. Sarah reached the altar and took Michael's hands. They looked into each other's eyes, and for a moment, everyone in the cathedral felt the magic of true love. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Sarah Chen and Michael Torres in holy matrimony. Sarah smiled at Michael, and he smiled back, both of them for completely different reasons. Before we exchange vows, Sarah said, her voice carrying perfectly through the cathedral sound system, I want to share with everyone the story of our love. I've prepared a special slideshow that shows exactly who Michael really is and how much our relationship has meant to both of us. The guests murmured appreciatively. How romantic, how thoughtful. Sarah was always so organized, so perfect in her attention to detail. The massive screens throughout the cathedral came to life with beautiful photos of Sarah and Michael from their early days together. Michael swept me off my feet with his charm, his intelligence, and what I thought was his genuine love for me. The guests smiled and pointed, recognizing themselves at various parties and events. Everyone looked so happy, so young, so in love. Jake, who was handling the audio-visual equipment, started the slideshow as Sarah had instructed. Our story began 3 years ago. Sarah continued, her voice steady and clear. The guests squinted, trying to figure out who it was. The woman's face wasn't clearly visible in the first few photos. Sarah and Michael at dinner, at the beach, celebrating birthdays and holidays. People started whispering frantically to each other. Emma went completely white and took a step backward. My maid of honor, the woman who's been sleeping with my fiancé for 8 months. Michael's confident smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure panic. Everyone in the cathedral was enchanted by the romantic slideshow. More photos flashed on the screens. Message after message of Michael and Emma planning Sarah's humiliation, laughing about her excitement over the wedding, calling her pathetic and gullible. People stood up in their seats, craning their necks to get a better look at the screens. Sarah's parents looked confused, then horrified as they realized what they were seeing. Emma's friends stared at her in shock and disgust. I thought Michael was the most honest man I'd ever met. I thought he loved me completely. I thought he would never, ever betray the trust I placed in him. Quote, Sarah's so stupid, she actually believes you love her. The look on her face when she finds out is going to be priceless. End quote. The photos continued to cycle through their relationship timeline. Sarah looked radiant in every image, clearly head over heels in love. Michael looked perfect beside her, the ideal boyfriend and fiancé. But sometimes, Sarah said, her voice taking on a slightly different tone, people aren't who they pretend to be. The photos on the screen began to change. Instead of Sarah and Michael together, they showed Michael with another woman. Sometimes the person you trust most in the world is actually your worst enemy. The next photo filled the screens throughout the cathedral. Michael and Emma, clearly intimate, in what was unmistakably Sarah's own bedroom. The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. That's my sister Emma, Sarah announced calmly. The cathedral erupted. But Sarah wasn't finished, not even close. Here's a text message Emma sent to Michael yesterday. Sarah continued, her voice never wavering. The screenshots of text messages filled the screens. Michael tried to speak, tried to stop what was happening, but Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. Here's another one from Michael to Emma. I can't believe she is paying for this whole wedding, while we laugh behind her back. After the honeymoon, we'll have access to all her accounts. Then we disappear. The cathedral was in complete chaos now. People were shouting, crying, standing on pews to get a better look. Sarah's father stood up and started walking toward the altar, his face twisted with rage. Emma tried to run, but Sarah's cousins blocked the exits. Wait, Sarah called out, her voice somehow carrying over the noise. There's more. Yes, already attempted to transfer money from our joint accounts into an account he opened with my sister. The screens changed again, showing bank transfer attempts, financial documents, evidence of Michael's plans to steal Sarah's money. Michael has been systematically planning to rob me blind. Michael finally found his voice. Sarah, stop this. This is insane. You're ruining everything. Sarah turned to him with that same terrifying smile. I'm ruining everything. Really, Michael. Let's hear what you really think about me." Michael's mother, who was clearly heard in the recordings, discussing how to exclude Sarah from family inheritance, was confronted by furious relatives. The screens went black for a moment, and then Michael's voice filled the cathedral through the sound system. Crystal clear audio of him confessing that he'd never loved Sarah, that he was only marrying her for her money, that he couldn't wait to humiliate her and disappear with Emma, tackling him to the ground in front of the altar. The beautiful floral arrangements were destroyed as people climbed over pews. The string quartet stopped playing and fled. The photographer kept shooting, capturing every moment of the most spectacular wedding disaster in history. Emma tried to run, but collapsed halfway down the aisle. Emma was hyperventilating on the floor, and somehow, impossibly, her voice carried over the chaos. Surrounded by furious family members demanding answers. Overcome by the stress and shock, Michael's best man, exposed as an accomplice, was surrounded by angry wedding guests who had realized they'd been part of an elaborate scam. The reaction was explosive. Sarah's brother started climbing over pews to get to Michael. Emma's parents began screaming at their daughter, but Sarah still wasn't finished. "The final piece of this love story," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife, "is this." Sarah stood calmly at the altar, still in her beautiful wedding dress, watching the complete destruction of everyone who had tried to destroy her. The screen showed Emma's pregnancy test, along with text messages discussing how their baby would be better off without Aunt Sarah in the picture. That's when the real violence started. Sarah's father reached Michael first, she announced. "I should mention, but I already did. They're waiting outside." Michael managed to break free from Sarah's father and tried to run toward the exit, but he was tackled by 4 of Sarah's male cousins. Through it all, but she had one final revelation that would make everything else look like a warm-up act. Sarah walked to the microphone at the altar. "Before anyone calls the police." The cathedral went silent for a moment as everyone processed what she'd said. "You see, what Michael and Emma and their accomplices didn't know is that I've been recording everything for the past 2 weeks. I have evidence of fraud, theft, conspiracy, and about a dozen other felonies. They thought they were going to humiliate me and steal my money." Sarah smiled that terrifying smile one more time. "Instead, they're going to prison." The sound of sirens filled the cathedral as police officers entered through every exit, having been briefed in advance about the evidence Sarah had gathered. Michael was arrested on charges of attempted grand theft and fraud. Emma was taken to the hospital due to complications from the stress, but she would face charges as an accomplice. The wedding guests stood in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Most of them would later say it was the most shocking thing they'd ever seen, but also the most satisfying. Emma's boyfriend, who had been planning to disappear with the stolen money, received 2 years. Michael's mother faced civil charges for her involvement in the inheritance conspiracy, but avoided criminal charges due to her age and health. Marriage counselors wanted to interview her. Legal experts wanted to study her case. Television producers wanted to turn her story into a documentary. Sarah had turned what should have been her humiliation into the complete destruction of everyone who had betrayed her. Her first video, explaining exactly how she had discovered Michael's betrayal and planned her revenge, received 10 million views in the first week. She became an advocate for people who had been betrayed by spouses and partners, helping them gather evidence and seek justice. She was incredibly good at investigation, at gathering evidence, at seeing through lies and deception. Her marketing background had given her skills in research and presentation that translated perfectly to exposing cheaters and fraudsters. And she had done it all while looking absolutely stunning in her wedding dress. She started a consulting business, helping people investigate suspicious partners. She wrote a book called The Revenge Bride: How I Turned My Wedding Day into Justice Day, that became a bestseller. The aftermath of Sarah Chen's wedding was unlike anything in legal history. The video footage, recorded by multiple guests on their phones, went viral within hours. Private investigators wanted to hire her as a consultant. Law enforcement agencies asked her to speak at conferences about financial fraud detection. The evidence Sarah had gathered was so comprehensive and damning that his lawyers advised him to take a plea deal. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution of over $200,000. Within 3 days, it had been viewed over 50 million times across all social media platforms. Her pregnancy complicated the legal proceedings, but she eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received 5 years probation with community service. The stress of the wedding day had caused complications that required hospitalization, and she lost the baby 2 weeks later. Sarah became known as the Revenge Bride, and her story sparked conversations about betrayal, justice, and the power of intelligence over emotion. Michael Torres was charged with attempted grand theft, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Emma Chen faced charges as an accomplice to fraud and conspiracy. Michael's best man, who had been caught on recordings discussing the plan to defraud Sarah, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. But the most interesting part of the aftermath wasn't the legal consequences. It was what happened to Sarah. Within a week of the wedding disaster, Sarah had received over 1,000 messages from people around the world sharing their own stories of betrayal and asking for advice. Sarah quit her marketing job and started a YouTube channel called Betrayal and Justice. Her channel grew to over 2 million subscribers within 6 months. More importantly, Sarah discovered something about herself that she had never known before. She started receiving requests from divorce lawyers who wanted her help gathering evidence in custody cases. 2 years after her wedding disaster, Sarah met David Kim, a prosecutor who had followed her story and reached out to collaborate on a case involving a similar fraud scheme. Their first meeting was supposed to be professional, but they ended up talking for 6 hours about justice, truth, and the importance of holding people accountable for their actions. When he proposed to Sarah 18 months later, he did it with complete openness about his finances, his family, his previous relationships, and his hopes for their future. David was everything Michael had pretended to be: honest, ethical, transparent about his past and his intentions. Their wedding was small, intimate, and completely drama-free. 25 people who genuinely loved them, a simple ceremony in Sarah's parents' backyard, and a reception that focused on celebration rather than spectacle. It was the messages she received from people who had watched her story and found the courage to investigate their own suspicious partners. But the most satisfying part of Sarah's new life wasn't her success or her new relationship. "I found out my husband was stealing from our business because of your video. My fiancé was cheating with my best friend, and I gathered evidence the way you did." Her attempt to start over was complicated by the fact that her face was recognizable to millions of people who had seen the wedding disaster video. She struggled to find work, maintain relationships, or build any kind of normal life. The trust had been broken in a way that couldn't be fully repaired. "I discovered my wife had been planning to disappear with our kids and all our money. Your story saved my family." It was a rambling, self-pitying attempt at an apology that blamed everyone but himself for his actions. Sarah read it once, laughed, and threw it in the trash. Hundreds of people had avoided the devastation that Sarah had experienced because her story had taught them to trust their instincts and gather evidence before confronting betrayal. His appeals were consistently denied, and his fellow inmates, who had heard his story, made it clear that they had no sympathy for men who betrayed women who loved them. He's eligible for parole in 2031, but given his complete lack of remorse and his continued attempts to blame Sarah for his actions, parole seems unlikely. She works as a night shift data entry clerk and has no social media presence. According to public records, she's never married or had children. Prison records show that he has been involved in multiple disciplinary incidents and has made no effort toward rehabilitation or taking responsibility for his crimes. She took a moment of ultimate betrayal and transformed it into a platform for helping thousands of other people seek justice and truth in their own relationships. Meanwhile, Michael Torres spent his days in federal prison, giving interviews to anyone who would listen, claiming that Sarah had been unstable and that he had been the victim of entrapment. Emma Chen changed her name and moved across the country, but the internet never forgets. The other conspirators faded into obscurity, but their lives were permanently marked by their association with one of the most famous betrayals in internet history. Sarah's parents, who had been devastated by Emma's betrayal, eventually reconciled with their daughter after extensive family therapy. But their relationship was never the same. The most surprising development came 3 years after the wedding, when Sarah received a letter from Michael in prison. She had moved far beyond needing closure from Michael Torres. She had built a new life based on truth, justice, and helping other people avoid the pain she had experienced. Sarah Chen turned what should have been the worst day of her life into the foundation of her life's purpose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad. It's getting even in a way that helps other people and makes the world a little bit better. Michael Torres is currently serving year 7 of his 15-year sentence. Emma Chen lives under an assumed name in Portland, Oregon. The stress and trauma of the wedding day, combined with the loss of her pregnancy and the destruction of her family relationships, left lasting psychological scars that she's still dealing with through therapy. The other conspirators have largely disappeared from public view. Michael S. Best Man was released after serving his full sentence and now works at a hardware store in rural Montana. Emma's ex-boyfriend completed his sentence and moved to Canada. Michael's mother died 2 years ago, reportedly still bitter about her son's imprisonment and blaming Sarah for the family's downfall. But Sarah is living her absolute best life. Her book has been translated into 12 languages and is used as a textbook in some criminal justice programs. The hashtag #RevengeBeEvidence has been used millions of times by people sharing their own stories of gathering proof before confronting cheating partners, fraudulent business associates, and dishonest family members. She married David Kim in a beautiful ceremony that was everything her first wedding was supposed to be: genuine, loving, and surrounded by people who truly cared about her happiness. She didn't just get even, she got justice. And she used her pain to help thousands of other people avoid the same betrayal. And if you want to hear more incredible true crime stories like this one, you absolutely need to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The next story involves a murder plot that went very, very wrong. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. They have 2 children now, and Sarah often jokes that her kids will grow up knowing how to spot a liar from a mile away. Seriously, it helps more than you know and lets me know you want more content like this. especially when karma has help from someone as brilliant as Sarah Chen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear Sarah's story. Sometimes people need inspiration to stand up for themselves and seek the justice they deserve. Her YouTube channel has over 3 million subscribers and has generated enough revenue for her to donate significantly to organizations that help victims of domestic abuse and financial fraud. We're building an incredible community of people who believe in justice, truth, and the power of intelligence over emotion. Most importantly, Sarah's story has inspired a movement of people who refuse to be victims of betrayal and fraud. Law enforcement agencies have credited Sarah's viral story with increasing public awareness about financial fraud in relationships. Divorce lawyers report that more clients are coming to them with comprehensive evidence packages, making it easier to achieve favorable outcomes in contested cases. Marriage counselors say that Sarah's story has encouraged more people to trust their instincts when something feels wrong in their relationships. What do you think? Was Sarah's revenge justified, or did she go too far? Personally, I think she handled it perfectly. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Was this the most satisfying revenge story you've ever heard? Or do you think Sarah should have handled it differently? I've got more revenge stories that will blow your mind. More cases of justice being served to people who thought they could get away with betraying the people who love them. Also, check out the playlist I've linked for more betrayal and revenge stories that lines keep you glued to your screen for hours. If this story kept you watching for the full hour, smash that like button. Until next time, stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember that karma has a way of showing up exactly when it needs to.